Welcome to the Men Talk Ubuntu podcast. Our guest this episode is a former high-flying global HR business partner with 20 years experience who is currently soaring to even higher heights as a career and business coach for ambitious women of color and allies, supporting the acceleration of their careers and businesses to six figures and beyond. One of the hardest working people I know, young, gifted, and Black. Samantha, it's a pleasure to have you here. Please tell us about your story and journey.
Well, thank you. I don't know which one I like most, being referred to as young or gifted or Black or all three. I think I want to start by saying that. So thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me here. And I would say my journey, I always say, always begins before I was even born. And people look at me and go, what? But it's true. My journey starts because I came from when my mum was pregnant with me, her then partner, my father, threw her out of a window, which was high rises, if anyone knows the high rises, on the 6th floor. Broke her leg and she remained in hospital for the entire time. I'm a twin, we're a twin pregnancy. So it was a miracle that we were actually born. We were premature, and that is actually the start of my life. I came from a very abusive background, and my mum was a powerhouse. She made a decision that she didn't want to bring us up in that environment. So she became a single mother with 3 very young children, and in a very disadvantaged background where Moss Side, Manchester, Moss Side, it's known for its gun culture and its, poverty kind of lifestyle, unfortunately. I was from there, and my mum made a decision very early on that she was going to send me out of the area with my twin brother to a more fluent area to go to high school so that we were not just a statistic. And I would say it was the best decision she made. One was that it meant that we would be we were in a completely different environment. We were outside of the gun side of things, where we had 2 choices, either teen pregnancy or a life of crime. But we then was opened up to new opportunities where we could look at our future, where it talks about university and things like that. And but what I didn't know was going into this environment would be the first time I would actually see what the world of work would be like, being one of only a handful of Black people in the whole school. I used to say we were peppered into the school because you could hardly see any of us. Out of 100 people, I was the only Black girl in my entire class. And I had a lot of, where are you from? I never understood that question as a child. Where are you from? I'm like, Manchester. And they're like, no, but where are you really, really from? I'm really from Manchester. And get people laughing at me, go, no, you really from? And I just did not get it. I could see them laughing. I'm like, what are they talking about? I've never been anywhere else but Manchester. At that time, I never even traveled. I believe I went to Spain once when I was a kid for the weekend. So for me, it was a bizarre question, bonkers. But I never knew that was what I was going to get when I went into the world of work. And I'd get people patting me like a dog. Ooh, your hair's nice. Can I touch it? Already touching it. No. Okay, you've already started. And I really learned that if I didn't make a stand, then no one would. And I became quite vocal from a very early age to just say, I'm not comfortable with certain things. And I started to notice when people were being bullied for being who they are. So in school, people started to come out really early. And people, if they came out, if they were a target, like complete target, if they said, I'm a lesbian, oh my goodness, they were a target. And I became one of those advocates from a very young age to say, because I was also targeted, shall we say, I didn't want that for my fellow peers. Yeah. So I became an advocate at a very young age. And when I went into the world of work, it continued. And I just couldn't shut up. as you probably know. I just, like, some people go, you don't have the place to speak. Why are you speaking? And I just used to go, one day I'm going to be able to be sat in this office and you're going to have no choice but to listen to me, because what I'm saying is the right thing to do. Treating people because they're, don't look like you, or getting rid of people because they're pregnant, it doesn't suit you anymore, or saying someone's no longer able to be qualified to be in this building because they now have a long-term disability, which means they are off more than others, that you should tell them and push them out. I became an advocate for people, and it wasn't long before I was told to sit down, shut up, that I started to be invited to be heard around the table. Sam actually has a point. Sam has got something to say. Let's bring her in. Let's hear what she's going to say. And a lot of people didn't like that. But then when they actually started to hear, okay, these are the things that you should be looking at. I was quite young. They started to take notice and started to make the changes. So yeah, I would say that's my intro. Very long as usual.
No. You've so eloquently condensed many years of a wonderful life, a very varied life. Just fantastically. Thank you very much, Sam. I mean, that I think for me that ties beautifully into what we're going to be discussing today, which is about understanding diversity and inclusion.
Absolutely.
I think from some of the things you've already said, some of the imagery, I mean, peppered around the school as well, especially, just this idea of it's like a seasoning things to make the school look better, but the fact that it's so spread out and you can barely also notice us, and the notion of you being alone in the room, being confronted with people who not necessarily want to understand you and where you're coming from, but perhaps also asking you where you come from in a disparaging way almost, yeah? As if to say, well, to some extent that usually leads to the question, and when are you going back? Are you here for good, But you've then taken that, which, let's not, skim around it. Someone else might have had that experience and it would have perhaps broken them or shaped them in a very different way, had them very angry at the people who did that to them or said that to them. But you've taken it and you've run with it in a very positive way. You've become an advocate for other people. You've gone, absolutely. I've seen what it's like for people to be bullied, whether that's coming from the household or elsewhere. I'm not going to stand for it for myself. And more than that, I'm not going to stand for it for other people. So I just thank you so much for being who you are in that regard.
Thank you.
A special kind of lady, Sam. If you'd heard, obviously, my introduction of Sam, you might not have guessed any of that. And this is why it's important to discuss some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't know what's going on beneath the surface. And we will dig deeper. But first, let's bring it back to today initially, before we get into the discussion. Mm-hmm. I'd like to ask Sam, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being on a high and loving life and everything, and 1 being, ooh, things aren't going so great, where would you rate yourself?
Well, as a mother of 5, yes, 5 under 5 too, I'd say that at times where I'm actually probably a 0, and then I just thank God that I have a God, and as a Christian, I need him, and that quickly then moves back up to the 8s and the 9s. I've never got to the pivotal of 10. There's always something that can be improved upon, but yes, that's where I would say. And today I'm an 8 because I'm in your company.
Hey. Ooh, I like that. To be the reason, for someone else to feel like they're an 8 is a wonderful thing for me. I appreciate that greatly. Okay, so with that said, I'm glad you're in a great place. And just for those curious, I also used to get patted. I used to have hair, but it ain't always been like this, all right? They don't go for the beard as much. I don't know what's up with that. Right, so what I'd like to do is now ask Sam, if you could tell us perhaps about your mental health story. We've probably touched on some parts of it, but I don't know if there's anything specific, whether it pertains to you or someone else or some other group that you've noticed, but is there anything that comes to mind about?
I would definitely say, so one of the things that I talk about is how you can go into the workplace and you can have a complete code switch from a Black person's perspective or ethnic minority perspective, and it can burn you out. So I've been quite blessed, shall we say, because when I went into the world of work, I say I'm a high achiever. I am a high achiever, and that comes from various different things. But I like to perform really well. And within a very short time in my career, I was probably about 19. I was already running my own little mini operation, shall we say, with 23 colleagues that I led. And I loved the job. Now, there was a time when I really wanted to get into HR because of what I was doing and getting involved in. And my manager decided that I was going to be a target. And she started to horrendously bully me. And it's the worst thing that I've ever encountered. I mean, I was scapegoat, I was victimized. I was told things like, Samantha, you need to use your initiative. And then when I would use my initiative and got praise from it from other people, she goes, I'm not happy that you didn't come to me. And I was constantly going around and around, working my butt off, coming in early, finishing really late, and didn't get any appreciation at all. Told you're not doing enough, even though I was achieving. So it became, I slowly started to break, and I didn't recognize that I was breaking until I was broken. And this individual, my manager at the time, was constantly picking and picking and picking at me until I broke, and I just could not do anymore. I was like, I cannot go any further. Like, this is it. And I remember the last thing that she probably did, which probably set me over the edge, was to tell me that she wanted me to stuff letters for an entire, I think, week instead of leading my team. And I was like, is this the most effective use of my time based on my skills? And she was going, do you think you're better than everybody else? I'm like, it's not that I'm better. I don't mind learning how to do it over a few hours because I'm sure there is not much to it. However, these are my skills. These are my skill sets. These are the best way you can get the best out of me. And she's like, I think you're better than everyone else, don't you? And it was just like, I think there is no win here. I'm never going to win with this person. This individual was very much a person who would single people out, not just me. I remember a woman who was pregnant. She goes, "How? Get rid of her. Get rid of her. I want her out of this building. She is pregnant. What use do I have of her?" So can you imagine what type of person we're dealing with here? And that was my manager. So she broke me, but she didn't break me enough. I knew that I needed to get out of there, but I knew I was for sure knew where I wanted to go, the direction I wanted to go in my life. And that was constantly about how can I make a change? So I decided that HR, human resources, was definitely the career path I wanted to be on. One, because we make policies, we make procedures, but we also implement change. And that's what I wanted to be able to do, is implement those changes and make a difference. And I believe that in a big global organization that I work for, that having that particular role, I could partner with individuals who made decisions and made sure that those decisions were the right ones. So that's how my career path was changed, from being just a manager to being a HR business partner from a global perspective.
Mm-hmm. I think, again, you've put it in almost a very simple way, how all of us spend a great deal of time at work.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Our mental health can be drastically affected by the relationships we have at work, especially with those who are above us in hierarchy, and sometimes also those lower below us in hierarchy, and they can make life complicated. And at this point, you're describing the journey of a young woman starting out in her career. And again, this could something that could completely put some people off and change their view of work and how they feel about going to work, and who knows what else could arise. You've taken that and you've run with it, and instead you've gone, I've had this awful experience, but I know, also because I was enjoying parts of it, I know it doesn't have to be this way. And I want to do my part to help other people do the same. And therefore, I'm going to go into human resources. I'm going to see what policies we can bring in I'm going to see how we can affect change. This is the proactive kind of stuff that I love to hear as well, because it's easy enough to complain about the things that are going wrong or the things that are affecting us in a negative way. It's not so easy to figure out solutions or to figure out what we can do, the actions that we can take as a result of them. So this is very inspiring for me. And in fact, perhaps we might be able to inspire someone else who's out there, maybe starting their career, or maybe they're transitioning into a different career. What advice would you have given your younger self, knowing what you know now, having achieved all of the success and brilliant things that you've achieved, and knowing how much more there is to go?
Oh, this is such a good question. I would actually say keep going. That's the word I use a lot to those that I coach, because it's easy just to give up. I mean, like I said, I was broken, but I wasn't broken enough. So had I decided that that was it for me, my story would be very different. I wouldn't be able to share what I'm sharing with you now, because I would have just totally given up on where God was leading me, what my purpose was, what was my, reason for being. If I would have just stopped there, that would have been it. But because of the experiences I went through, it allowed me to know that keep going. If you keep going, you just around the corner. You're not, it's someone, I think I read something that says it's not rejection, it's redirection. So just because you feel that this rejection, maybe from that manager, completely rejected me and others that she didn't see a need for anymore, I was being redirected to my true purpose. Like, that was the role I was supposed to do. And I would never probably have gone on that journey had I not experienced the things I experienced. And being in the role that I'm doing now, where I'm a diversity and inclusion expert and a career coach, and I help businesses to really understand where they're supposed to be and to get diverse clientele, but also be inclusive, that would never have happened if I didn't keep going. So my younger self, keep going, you're going to make it.
Keep going. You heard it here.
Keep going.
Simple advice, but just fabulous advice as well. Never losses, always lessons.
Exactly.
As you were saying all this with keep going as well, it made me think of that adage of, life is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And in a marathon, you often have stations where you can get some water, get some food. Unless you're elite and you just gun it, it's all good. Some people might do that. So some people might go all the way through by themselves, and they're just built that way. I don't know if that's the case for you. Were there other people along the journey who were helping you at these, say, rest points, or helping you keep going, giving you some of the advice or the recommendations, helping with these redirections?
100%. Like, 100%.
Not all of them now, just caveat. Hey, you can't say all of you, all right? So we're going to hear about maybe a few.
Yeah, there are some really key people, and I won't put them in here by name, but so part of my journey is this is nicely tied, because I left and went on a career break, and I decided that I was going to go to France. So je parlais en français. So I went to France and lived in Nice and studied human resources from a European perspective, traveled all around Europe, and decided I was going to come back and continue my career in HR. When I came back, they were like, do you want to go back into your manager position? I was like, nope, I want to go back into HR. And when I was joining, they were like, okay, if that's what you want to do, we're going to do our best to get you there. And I thought they were talking, how can we say that in a nice way?
Lip service. They were paying lip service.
Yes, that's nice. I'd say it in a very different way. And but when I came in, there was a particular director, really high up. And in the environment I've been in before, you never see these people. They're never visual. They're never around. You just don't see them. You hear about them. You may get an email every couple of weeks saying, oh, this is what I've been doing. I'm skiing in the Alps or whatever. But you never see these individuals. And I remember the first impression I had of him, he came into the business and he was told to go into an office and he refused. Then they gave him this enclosure where he could be amongst everyone, which had this, like, no one could see inside, but he could see outside. And he was like, get rid of this. What is this? And I remember him just telling people just to get rid of this like enclosure. He wants to be in the world of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And they removed it, thought he was a bit of a, probably thought it was a bit strange. And he must have recognized the environment he was in, because he started to look at the environment he was in and wanted to find out more. Why does this world look like this? Why is it predominantly white? He's a white male. And he wanted to, find out more, me being the advocate that I am already shouting and, shouting about. He was like, come on, Sam, tell me what's going on. And he allowed me to express what was going on in the voices of other people. So this is what's happening and that's what's happening. Change needs to happen because a lot of people are burnt out, like, completely burnt out, and he wanted change. So he even said, one of the words that he said to me, and I was surprised by, was he said to me, I know as a Black woman, it's going to be twice as hard for you to get twice as far. And he actually said those words. I was like, how does this guy know? Like, how does he know all this information? And and it was just simple that he had made a conscious effort to become aware and educate himself on what was actually going on in the world. And at that time, we're talking, this is before Black Lives Mattered. And, I know Black Lives do matter, by the way, but as well before that time. And he just had identified, and he went to seek more understanding. And he started to rise individuals up that were lesbians, gays, bisexuals, or trans, or other, that were Black ethnic minorities. He made a conscious effort to go outside of the norm and connect with these people. And you started to see people getting into managing roles and start to move around the bank and start to do things that they would never have had the chance to do had he not come into this world and made that decision. And he became my sponsor. He became my mentor. He became the person who would open the doors no one would open if he didn't have the influence. And it made shockwaves go around, because it was a case of, instead of me trying to fight, he would go into these big rooms that I never got to see sometimes at that time and make a stance and say, actually, these are the things that my people care about. How can we change it? And things started to change. And then I was invited myself to be part of the journey. And I wasn't even yet qualified at that point in HR. I was still studying. I'd done some work at that time and I'd learned a lot, but then I was starting to be able to implement, and I wasn't even qualified yet. Get involved in projects that was inclusive, and how can we make sure everyone's brought on the journey. And I got involved in some really high profile projects at a very young age, and a very young particular part of my career. I would never have been able to do that. When I look back from a HR perspective, that never happens. What I was able to do never, ever happens. That's because I had a sponsor. Just one person. I had loads of other ones along the way, but he was the one that kind of stands out.
We're grateful for him.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, there's also the underlying element there. It's not just it didn't happen by chance, right? We've heard some of the story of how you've built yourself up and the way you were trying to do all these things. So if someone's looking, it's easy to see that we've got a high flyer here. We need to listen to what this person's doing. We've got someone here who really cares not just about the business or profit, but also about the people around them. And they want to get involved. So many people are switched off. They come in, they do whatever they need to, or the bare minimum sometimes, whatever it is, but they're not necessarily engaged with the whole organization. And you strike me as someone who is, or would be, because you really want to make an impact. And that's what he would have seen. That's how he would have picked the other people as well. And that's why these things are important. The opportunity, preparation. So Sam was prepared. The opportunity was presented. Everything came together beautifully.
Yeah. I agree.
I think I can absolutely see that. The notion that he made a conscious effort to come to an understanding of the context, like what's going on with people who are different to me, what's going on. And as much as he's learned for himself, he's still seeking other people who are living that experience as well. So these might be good markers or indicators for some people who are out there. If you're in the workplace and you're thinking, how do I identify an advocate? It's not just looking for someone who says Black Lives Matter and all this stuff. Look at their actions, look at their role. Are they going into the meetings that you're not in and speaking up? We'll hear about it if they are, right? Like we definitely will. And it's wonderful to hear, because we're talking about understanding diversity and inclusion. This isn't something that a classroom is good, a course is good, but to fully understand it, you have to also go to the lived experience of the people who are going through it. And that's the only other way.
Yeah.
YouTube videos are good, but you must speak to the people too.
Yeah, you definitely. And I think as well is that diversity inclusion has to be very, very proactive and away from being reactive. Has to be. At the moment, I see a lot of reactive stances coming from organizations. Let's quickly do something. Let's quickly do something. And if they took a stance and started to be proactive about it, things would change very quickly instead of where we are now.
Wonderful. And I also make the point, you touched on the different characteristics of the people that was identifying. One of many. He was one of many advocates, but he pointed out, like you were pointing out, the different people he started to, keep trying to work with and keep giving the opportunity where they might otherwise not have it. You're a very diverse person, and now I can see, and hopefully everyone else can see, why you're a diversity and inclusion expert and why you're qualified to talk about these things. Not just the many years of HR and all the different projects you would have been involved with, as well as with the CIPD Manchester branch, which is where we met. Yeah. But there's more going on there. So yes, the obvious. Beautiful melanated skin we have. But beyond that, we've mentioned you're a mother of 5.
Yep.
Yeah. And your mother managing such a busy and hectic career and managing all these different people. As well as that, you're obviously now a coach and a entrepreneur in your own right as well. And HR business partner, juggling, you were wearing many hats. A volunteer as well, because hey, volunteers don't get paid. Yeah. That's an important thing. There's passion out there. So we acknowledge that there are other people who are diverse in other ways than we are. With that said, I'd like to ask how being an HR business partner, being, this high level exec, if you will, in organizations, being this coach, how have all those things strengthened you?
So how have they strengthened me? I don't think I would have been, like I mentioned before, I couldn't have been this person had I not gone through those experiences. So I definitely say don't be afraid, don't be afraid to allow things to come. Avoidance is probably the worst death of us all. If we avoid things, then it's a killer to our spirit and to our being, where we're going to go in our next stage of life. So what strengthened me is seeing an obstacle, seeing it in front of me and going through it anyway. If I can't go over it, I'm definitely not going to go around it. I'm going to go through it. And that's the biggest way of go through it. Go on, do it. It's going to change your life.
Oh, I love it. I want to run through something right now. And so I'm asking that because I think when we boil it down, these are the core elements of who you are. And these are what make you valuable as a person and in the business context. It's these things, this attitude, such that if someone else wanted to identify what value they bring to the workplace, that they might look through some of the experiences they have, some of the hats that they wear in everyday life.
Yeah.
And I suspect going through education, doing all these personal development courses and things that you do, and coaching and being coached, you're very aware. Are there any tips, suggestions, recommendations for people to start to try and identify what makes them valuable?
Yeah, I think mindset is a biggie. And you hear it all the time, mindset this, mindset that, but it's so true.
Mhm.
You need to really reframe your whole mind, because it's the thing you can, I know I say a few sayings, but another one that I say is your mind can be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy. The choice is yours. And if you decide to make it your best friend, and when I say that, what I mean is by fueling yourself, your mind with positivity, and that's not the only thing, but actually deciding to do things that are positive, having people around you that are positive, your life will change to a positive, in a positive way, without a shadow of a doubt. Another word I always say is, birds of a feather flock together and all that sort of stuff. But we also have people who, if you just look at who they're around, who are they surrounded by, what type of conversations they're having, you can tell by that where they're going to go in life. Simple as that. You can tell. So if you choose wisely the people you're going to have in your space, look at how you position yourself in terms of your mindset, and actually go for things that are going to grow you, develop you, and move you forward, you are going to be a different person for the better. And I could say the opposite, and I just don't feel like I want to, which is the opposite is going backwards. We want you to go forward.
do go forward. Sometimes the journey feels too hard and you want to just take off your shoes, sit down, or go back. Go forward.
Go forward, yeah.
As soon as you were born, you crossed the point of no return. There's no choice now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I hear you.
Excellent. I think that's a really, really good recommendation for people as a starting point, for sure. Man, this feels like one of those life-changing kind of things. I'm hearing it and I'm taking it in sometimes. You might see me like go off and I'm, oh wow, yeah, it's great stuff. Now, with that said, and with you being the diversity and inclusion expert in the room, of course,
and this is a big room, by the way. It's like a stadium.
It is a very big room. And I should say we are in the World Harvest Christian Center building, thanks to our sponsors and partners, CAN, the Caribbean and African Health Network. So if you're looking out for your health and you want to be better, make sure you follow some of their social media activity, follow their health hours on YouTube. See what you can do for yourself, your family, your friends. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's some great scientific research that they do. I think at some point I'm going to have to do an episode on Khan and their amazing work. We're going to work on that because I'm talking to Sam right now. But thank you to Khan for helping us find and use this wonderful facility. It's great. Hey, look at that. One day, stage, right? Okay, I'm digressing. Diversity and inclusion expert in the room. So of course we have to ask, let's begin with, what are some of the common misconceptions people might have about diversity and inclusion?
That it actually doesn't matter, that they don't need it, and that I get two stances. One is that they don't know what to do. They're afraid, basically, of saying the wrong things or doing the wrong things, so they do nothing, which is the worst place to be, because sometimes it can be actually life or death situations. And I say that from a maternity perspective, which we can go really digress, where if someone's in the room and you have to make a decision whether or not you go to service them, but you just make a decision not to because you're afraid, could be life or death, couldn't it? Really, if you're in a maternity setting where someone's going to give birth, or they've got a wound that needs to be stitched up, you're like, oh, I don't want my books. And the other one is where you are thinking that you know it all, shall we say, that I do run a very inclusive business or an organization. We do everything already so right. And those two spectrums are the worst places to be. One is that they are afraid and don't move forward, and they sit on the fence and they don't do anything about anything. And the other one is just as bad, because they don't want to improve. diversity and inclusion as a concept is constantly changing. It's moving so fast. You only need to Google it to know that today and do it again tomorrow will know, wow, that's already changed. If you already think you know it all, you are not going to be able to move forward. There is so much into it. It's such a broad subject. I'm an expert. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still making sure that I'm ahead of the game and on trend to help shape the future for all organizations. I don't know it all. And I'm not afraid to say I don't know it all. So I'm always cautious when I get someone going, I know everything there is to know. And I want to encourage those that, in that space, please, if you are in that area where you are already feeling like you're doing a great job, continue the momentum, and make sure that you try to know more about the subject, become more educated. You can never read enough. I don't know if you agree with that. You can never read enough. You can never be more aware. You can never understand more than you know now. Keep going, that word that I use all the time. Keep going. And then in addition to that, those who are afraid of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing, I would encourage you to get on sessions that I run. For example, running the diversity roundtable for the CIPD, which is on the 31st of March. That's where you can become more educated and more aware of the bigger things, the bigger questions, and truly understand how you can shape the organization for the better in diversity and inclusion. What's missing? Where are your gaps? Where can you improve? I would definitely recommend, I don't know how you can share this, but on Eventbrite, if you put CIPD Manchester Diversity Roundtable, you will find us on there. Join that session. It is going to be a groundbreaking. You're going to see Peter Cheese, who is the CEO, Big Cheese himself. He's there, but we also have some amazing, talented individuals, distinguished guests who are going to be joining as well.
If you don't sign up to that, you're missing out, right?
Missing out, really. I'm hosting it. I mean, I'm hosting it, but there's some really distinguished guests who are going to be talking about things that really matter in your organization. Join it.
Yeah. Remember, a lot of the times, my own views, sometimes I might be right, I might be wrong. We won't label it with diversity and inclusion. A lot of the times you might think, I'm going to get to know all of this stuff. I'm going to read this book and that's how I'm going to become the expert, or I'm going to fill my knowledge gap. You can read one book. You go to this event. There are 100 people who've read 100 different books and you're in the room with them. You get to benefit from that knowledge. You've got already here, we've got over 20 years of HR experience and loads of other things going on, right? You're not going to acquire that amount of information in your lifetime. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to benefit. You've heard the experiences Sam has gone through. Now, imagine a room full of people with similar experiences. Imagine a room full of people who want organizations to be as open, as inclusive, and embrace as many people from as broad a diverse range as possible, because they know the power that comes with that. And, if you're a business person, the profit as well. All right. I mean, let's be real, because their diversity gives you that.
That's right.
It gives you an unfair advantage, a competitive advantage that is often underutilized because people don't always know how to actually engage with people from diverse backgrounds. They just think, oh, I'll just get people who look different. They've neglected the recruitment, the induction, the whole selection process of finding these people. They've not thought through how those people, the gaps they could really come and engage in their business with. I just realized I was starting to go off on an HR passion drive now.
That's right.
So again, events like this are invaluable. This is how you as a business owner, small, medium, large, this is where you need to be. These are the people you need to engage with. Like you've heard, there's going to be distinguished guests. Go on to Eventbrite, look up the Diversity Roundtable with Sam. We'll post it on the Mentor Ubuntu sites and social media networks. Follow the CIPD or check out the CIPD Manchester. All the information will also be there. These are like, come on, the information's there for you. Like, go for it. Hey, that's by the by. Don't complain about it if you're someone who thinks, oh my God, Black Lives Matter, but they don't take it seriously at work. Go and get the information. Then you can figure out how you can introduce this at work.
Yeah.
And with that said, do you find, do we know maybe why there's a resistance to diversity and inclusion with some organizations or with some people? Or perhaps not a resistance. I don't know. Is it a lack of awareness?
I think lack of awareness is a big one. One of the things that I personally am an advocate of and teach myself is it's not just understanding the what.
Yes.
Because, you know, we're kind of getting to that point now. People know what, you know, what to do, why we're doing it. You know, there's a big reason. We know why we're doing this. A moral case. You know, you're a human being. We know that the reason why we want diversity because it's you're a human being, and we need to make sure that people are included. And that saying that Verna, I think her name Verna Myers, is that saying that she says, I like sayings, which is that if you want to be diverse and inclusive, it's diversity is being invited to the party and inclusion is being asked to dance. There's a big, big, massive difference. And I like to talk about not just the what and the why, but how you do things, how you implement things. Because I know from a HR background, I can go to all these conferences, I can attend them all, but unless I go back and I know how to do it, when I get back into the organization, it's just going to be written in my book and it's going to be put to the side and it's going to be something I look at again, never. So that's the bit that's really important. The individuals that are going to be coming along, as well as Peter Cheese, include Cheryl Miller.
Thank you for listening to Men Talk Ubuntu podcast and being a valued member of our community. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube, Instagram, and other social media now for access to our latest updates. DM us and let us know what your mental health is on a scale of 1 to 5. Thank you.
Cheryl Miller is an author who's going to be in attendance. We also have Julie Turner, and again, she's an author, and again, she's one of our distinguished guests. And I love all these people who have written about, Cheryl has written about diversity and inclusion, and Cheryl's written about HR from a HR perspective.
Yeah, wonderful. Because remember, if someone has taken the time to process their thoughts, get them in order enough to write a book on the topic or the subject matter, then you know that they truly care about it, and you can benefit from that and be inspired to do the same, perhaps for yourself as well. Get yourself in the room with the right people, and it'll change your life potentially.
Absolutely.
I love it. It's a wonderful starting point. That point you made also about, sometimes the whole, I think the resistance probably came to mind because you mentioned how some people are closed off because they feel like they know everything there is to know about this. Some people go, it's just too complicated. I don't want to get in touch with it. So if they're shut off in either way, there's going to be an issue. And you might be part of an organization that thinks, if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Yeah.
I look around, there's no diverse people here. We're doing fine. We've been profitable. Why should I bother?
Yeah, I would definitely add on to that, which is that, you cannot make diversity and inclusion a tick box exercise. Yeah. Some organizations, like you talked about, lip service, and they're literally going, well, we are diverse. But then when you go and look at it in more detail, they may be diverse, but are they inclusive? Do people feel like they belong? Mm-hmm. Do they truly feel like they belong? A good way of finding out if they really are is attrition.
Yes.
Are people just coming in and out because they don't feel like they truly belong into the organization? So diverse people come in and diverse people go out. Therefore, they're just constantly moving them, but they're not actually keeping them. And it just means that they're not doing enough. Mm-hmm. It's, data, go look at your data, tells you so much. A lot of people don't go and look into that. Yeah. What is your data telling you? I love looking at data.
Because remember, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Unless you make them represent something that, then, let's not get into that, right? Let's be evidence-based here. And also linked to the diversity and inclusion point, I love that you brought in Verna Myers, because, sometimes I feel like the US is so ahead on some of these things that it's profound how far ahead they are compared to all of us. However, with Verna Myers, I love the example because I think she was with Netflix. And when you look at how well Netflix has done and how well they continue to do, and just how diverse and inclusive all of their programming is, not just with color, but programs from all around the world get up. Squid Games, for example, is coming in from Korea. Who would have thought? And everyone loves it
True.
because they're exposed to it. And now we're dancing with it, you know? I love that. When you look at Disney, we might think not as diverse, very established in the old rooted ways, but
Yeah, very
they've
true.
learned to flex. And when you look at, for example, with Kevin Feige taking over and him starting to bring in loads of different teams, like there the success comes. They were great, but now they've really gone where they need to, and they've been able to buy back a lot of their properties. Oh, I'm a cinephile, forgive me. So these examples, again, we can root them in reality. You have to look beyond what we're saying. Don't just agree and nod along when people say stuff about diversity and inclusion, or when you go into the room, don't just say, I'm diverse and I'm going to bring change. Like, be able to give your rooted examples, be able to identify what the value you will bring is. And that's what will allow them to take you seriously. That's what will let them go, we need to hear from this side. You know, we need to sometimes get better at articulating ourselves when it comes to these things and not shy away from it. I won't get political. I won't do that. I won't do that. All right. So if someone works somewhere, Sam, that let's say could do better, is there something that they could do, or what's your recommendation for them to be a change agent, to bring in some change in that organization?
So change agent is definitely a proactive stance. You cannot just be reactive all the time. You need to take the opportunity to see where you can make change before it becomes an issue or a challenge. The thing is that we're seeing in the world is that people are very reactive, and they only, or sometimes, like I said, we've got those people who are on the fence as well, but only make a decision to react or act when something is right there in front of them, in their face, screaming at them, do something. And even then, people are turning a blind eye, go, if I don't say anything or do anything, then it's all right. But it's screaming in your face. Diversity inclusion is like literally screaming in your face. If you're a proactive organization, leader, individual, you need to think ahead of yourself and think ahead of what's actually going on to actually be able to do great things in the organization from a diversity and inclusion perspective. I hope that makes sense, because the value is by challenging old behaviors, challenging what's done now, and starting to look at, well, what can we do better? What does good really look like? What does excellent look like? And start to work towards an excellent organization. Be best in class. Be best in class. Be best in class. So be best in class. And what does that look like? What does that look like? So not just looking at the people that are doing it now, you want to stand out? How are you going to do that as an organization? How are you going to stand out and be best in class? And that's what my argument is be proactive, challenge old behaviors. Simple message.
Effective.
Yeah, simple,
Don't
straightforward,
be reactive,
effective.
be proactive. HR people, health and safety, risk assessment, risk management. You want to avoid the hazard. You don't want to deal with the hazard. No one wants a fire in the workplace. Yeah. We want to avoid it as much as possible.
Prevention is better than cure, as my granny used to say.
Wise granny, This is true. Yeah, so I think very, very helpful information there. Make sure you're proactive, not reactive, and I'm now getting just conscious of time as well. So I'm trying to tame all of my thoughts. My random thoughts are flying around. But I love it. Let's all try and be change agents where we can and bring the facts. This is great. So what I will do is move on to our surprise questions, which we always end with. And I'm sure you're going to love these. They're 4 very simple, straightforward questions. So you just say the first thing that comes to mind. And if you're ready, the first one goes, what's the best thing about being Black?
Wow, that's a great question. I like that. So what's the best thing about being Black? I always say this now. I got loads of things and loads of sayings. I just realized this is brought it out to me. But I was never designed to fit in. I was designed to stand out. being Black allows me to always stand out. I'm never in competition with anyone because I'm in a category of its own, like literally. I mean, just saying.
I'm agreeing. Excellent. Oh, I love that. I love that. I want to feel like that about me, Yeah. Oh, I wasn't designed to fit in. Don't ask. Huh?
It's so true, isn't it?
Stand out. That's a good one. That's a way to start your week. Just remember that, yeah?
Yeah, remember that.
Now, don't stand out for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Stand up for all the right reasons. You make a decision every day to stand up for the right reasons.
This is it. All right.
Yeah.
Second question. Who taught you how to shave?
To shave?
Mm-hmm.
Where? Like,
I always get asked this. I'm like, hey, I just asked the question. I don't go any further, all right? I just say, who taught you how to shave? And I listen to try and understand.
I think I taught myself. I think I think I saw a razor in my mum's room when I was probably about 6. I was like, oh, what's this? And then I may have seen her doing it because I wanted to, copy and paste. And I remember doing it on my legs, no shaving gel, nothing, and just having a big raw red line going up the leg. And I just remember, I don't think this is the right way, starting to cry. It didn't hurt, it was just red, painful. No, it wasn't painful, it was just red.
Yeah.
That's it. It's an interesting question. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend shaving though. Don't shave. I wax.
Oh, okay, yeah. Veet.
Yeah. No, I don't get.
No?
I actually have a wax lady who comes and does my underarm and stuff like that.
Oh, sorry. I just imagined that.
It lasts a lot longer, 6 weeks.
Hey. Veet hair removal cream, if I ever need to do that for me. I'm a sissy when it comes to. I saw 40-year-old virgin. I'm not about that life.
I'm really. I don't know where these questions are going next. Bracing myself.
Buckle in. All right. The penultimate question. Question 3. What resource do you hope people use or still use 100 years from now?
Own minds, like, with AI and all that, it's kind of scary that people just won't use their own initiatives and use their own minds to think for themselves, not allowing computers or technology to do it for them. Definitely, we have to have our own consciousness, because I don't believe that if we lose that, we lose humanity, don't we? Yeah, we lose humanity. That's it.
Devil's advocate. But if someone went, if I could give you a chip and then you could download all the books you ever wanted to read and they'll be there ready for you to access.
No, I don't think. I think there's such a refreshing, just being able just to pick up I actually like picking up an actual physical book and actually opening up the pages and absorbing that book. Something I mentioned is I'm dyslexic. There's a lot of a common assumption that you can't read or write, and it's just so untrue. It just takes a lot longer, and I appreciate just being able to just open a book and download my own words and sit and think for myself. And you can get audiobooks, I use that a lot, but you stop yourself from doing what your mind is designed to do. Don't know by design. It's by design. We are designed this way.
Is there any particular book for you that's been impactful along your journey? Or?
Oh, if you're talking about, I love The Color Purple. By Alice Walker. That is my ultimate favorite book. I've watched the movie. I've read the books several times throughout my life. And that's a good one. Lived examples, going through some serious, hard stuff and coming out on top.
You is kind. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I do. I love it.
Yeah, we going in with the "till you do right by me." That's how I talk for today. All right? Enough of that. You is kind. You is smart. Thank you for sharing that. And what do you wish more men talked about?
Their feelings and emotions, of course. it's one of the things that they kind of hide and keep for themselves. And I think that if they were able to show other young men that it's okay, then we would probably again change the world, because yeah, there's a lot of stuck feelings for a lot of men, and I think that doesn't add on to their mental health, and that's where we get midlife crises and things like that. I need a drink.
Sure, sure. Oh, that for some reason that was leading me to want to ask which feeling specifically, but was also making me want to ask something about the relationship with you and your dad. But
you can ask those questions. So feelings particularly, oh, I don't know. All of them, like all of them. I think yeah, I think all feelings. I think men in general feel, I don't know, you correct me if I'm wrong, being a male,
I was made
that
to stand out.
it's yeah,
I'm a
they
different
feel
breed.
more of a man. They've been taught from a very young age. They're more of a man if they do not show that any weakness. So we have children, boys who cry. Don't cry, you're a boy. Like I've got a son who's 3, and I don't want him to feel like he cannot express himself. So if he does cry, I automatically say to him, it's okay to cry, and it's okay to, you know, have to show me that it's something's upsetting you. It's okay. Talk me through why you feel like this. I do that automatically and encourage my husband to do the same, because, you know, it's difficult. You're constantly being told this is how you're supposed to be when you're a male.
I would agree with that. Personally, say, for example, I had to check myself a couple years ago because I found myself doing that cliche or stereotypical thing of, say, my nephew's crying. Like, come on, man, cut that out. You know, what you, little girl or something, you know, all those little things. But it's something for me personally that I've had questions in my own head about, because I've heard about other dudes who cry and all this, that it's not there. But it's not there, and I'm not in a like machismo way. Like it's a concern. It becomes a concern at some point, because you think, am I unable to express this emotion, or am I unable to feel enough joy or sadness with something? Like, am I so detached from people I love and everything that I wouldn't even, you know, I can't access that? And part of it is years and years and years of training to bottle things up and contain them. And I had to start saying, for example, to my nephew, hey, yeah, it's okay to cry, but lead them out of it, because that changes the conversation as men that we were having, or that I was having with him. So he wouldn't feel ashamed of crying in front of me or have to close off, because then there's nothing to say after you've told someone that. Cut your crying out. You're not going to then start talking, you know, they're going to be there trying to contain themselves, and they're not going to open up about what happened really. They're going to just shut off.
And that's what that's basically what we're teaching children to do.
Yeah.
Well, young men.
Yeah.
We're going to grow up to be adult men, and then we're like, well, please tell us why are you not tell? Because we've taught them from a really young age.
We learn to just carry it, snuff that out, put it in the back of your pocket. But there is nothing wrong with expressing it and expressing why you feel that way. I had a very touching conversation with one of my friends who, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me expressing this. Like, he lost his job almost a month or so before his wife was due to give birth, unexpectedly, you know. And at some point he was crying while he, you know, because he's like, what's going to happen? Corona was happening. Am I going to find something? Baby's on the way now. That's all he could do, you know. And I said to him, I was very proud of him in that moment, or in those moments, because not because he was just crying and he's able to express. I said I was proud of him because of the reason he was crying. He was crying due to the frustration that he couldn't perhaps provide for his family, or that the situation was going to go. It ended up very well. He ended up in a new job. He was very happy, and they're doing very well. The lovely child. Shout out to y'all. Inspiration for me there. And it's this idea as well that, remember, when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, we're standing atop the shoulders of giants. There were people who cried, and not only cried, but died, so that some of us can be in the position that we're in now. And that includes if you're in a, because we even spoke about neurodiversity before we kicked all this off, but we haven't even gone into that. There's so much we could cover, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you think about how people who are neurodiverse were treated in the past, and even to this day, to some extent, and let's not even go into different parts of the world because I don't live there, but there are people who've allowed our situation to be different right now. And that's why we're able to express it. They cried, they died, and we're now detached from some of what they did and what they experienced. And okay, sorry, I get passionate sometimes with this stuff.
I'm listening. I'm like,
it gets in, like
it's going in, and it's like, yeah,
color purple. It triggered me. Read the book, watch the movie, whatever you want. But again, sometimes it's important to just remember some of the reference points we have. Things are so good right now, as much as, yes, we might still be going through issues and face whatever, but not even that far back. You only need to go back a couple decades and en masse, it's not a great situation for lots of groups of people. So we got cause to be really happy.
Yeah.
We can still be better.
It was only 1995 when the Disability Act in the UK actually became an act itself, Quality Act. So it's been recently updated in 2010. But the fact that it's not 1900s or 1960s when they started to advocate, how long does things need to take before we start to see change is ridiculous. Sign to lose my voice.
Sure. This is a sign. We've covered way more than enough for now. The conversation will surely continue. And my God, it's been just fascinating to hear everything. I'm just engrossed.
We could carry on for a long time.
We could. So
I think we need to eat.
Yeah. What I will say is, for the listeners, now they know that they have to look for you on Eventbrite, and March 31st, look for the Diversity Roundtable, find the CIPD Manchester, get in touch with that. How else can they keep up with Sam and all the wonderful things Sam's doing? Or if they want to move up to that 6 figures, you're a small business, you're a big business, if you're an individual who wants to go up and be a high net worth individual with 6+ figures.
Absolutely. I would definitely say follow me on LinkedIn. Go to my website, which is very easy, www.samanthalubanzu.com. And that Lubanzu is spelled Lubanzu, Lubanzu. I'd love for you to join my network.
Fabulous. And Sam's got a great way of engaging with her audience. If you read any of her pieces or if you read the back and forths, so you're going to have a great time if you join her community, and you're going to always benefit. She always brings value. So do yourself a favor, do the people you know a favor, small business owners, medium-sized business owners, multinational global business owners, Samantha Lubanzu. Sam, we're here predominantly to promote positive perceptions of Black men and mental health. And of course, you're a Black woman. We're here to promote mental health and awareness around people in general. So I just want to thank you so much for being, again, who you are, and for, I'm getting the image of this like samurai sword being forged, for allowing your experiences to forge you into the incredibly unique, talented, hardworking, and very loving and caring person that you are today. And just thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
Thank you as well. I'm really happy to have been here today in this huge, like literally a football field of a room.
There's literally a goalpost in the corner over here. Excellent. So for you listening, thank you so much. This should be out on International Women's Day. Make sure March is a month that you make magical for yourself and the people you love. It is good and it is important that you are here. And hopefully you will see Sam on March 31st at the Diversity Roundtable, if not, on social media.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed creating.
Don't forget to follow, like, share, and connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Subscribe to our latest episode and listen to any you missed. And tune in next episode.
Take care.